the Protestant, that pattern setter, or is he but an ideology? Or is he but an allegory for the modern man? So set to tell us, was tempted by wilderness, by a place or emptiness which made no seductive demands of its own upon him. In this he was in this he was not different from the hermit. The difference was that instead of traveling to the desert, the Protestant worker hard to make desert come to him, to remake the world in the likeness of the desert. Impersonality, coldness, and emptiness are essential words in the Protestant language of environment. They express the desire to see the outside as null, lacking value. This is the kind of language in which one speaks of the desert, of nothingness waiting to come something, if only for a while, of meaningless waiting to be given meaning, if only a passing one of the space without concourse, ready to accept any contours, ready to accept any contour offered, if only until other contours are offered of a space not scared with the past, furrows, yet fertile with expectation of sharp blades, of virgin land yet to be plunged and tilled, of the land of the perpetual beginning, of the place no place, whose name and identity is not yet. In such a land, the trails are blazed by the destination of the pilgrim, and there are few other tracks to reckon with. In such a land, commonly called modern society, pilgrimage pilgrimage is no longer a choice of the mode of life. Less still, it is a heroic or saintly choice. Living one's life as pilgrimage is no longer the kind of ethical wisdom revealed to or initiated by the chosen and the righteous. Pilgrimage is that one does of necessity to avoid being lost in a desert, to invest the walking with a purpose while wandering the land with no destination. Being a pilgrim, one can do more than talk. One can talk too. One can look back at the footprints left in the sand and see them as a road. One can reflect on the road past and see it as a progress toward an advance, a coming closer to. One can make a distinction between behind and ahead, and plot the road ahead as a succession of footprints, yet to footmark the land without features. Destination, the set purpose of life's pilgrimage, gives form to the formless, makes a whole out of the fragmentary lends continuity to the episodic. The desert-like world commands life to be lived as pilgrimage, but because life is a pilgrimage, the world at the doorsteps is desert-like, featureless, as its meaning is yet to be brought into it through the wandering which will transform it into the track leading to the finishing line where the meanings resides. This bringing in of meaning has been called identity building. The pilgrim and the desert-like world, he talks, acquire meanings together and through each other. Both processes can and must go on because there is a distance between goal the meaning of the world and the identity of the pilgrim, always not yet reached, always in the future, and the present moment, the station of the wandering and the identity of wanderer. Both meaning and identity can exist only as projects, and it is the distance which enables projects to be. The distance is what we call, in the objective language of space, the experience, which is subjective. Psychological Psychological terms we speak about as dissatisfaction with and denigration of. They are the here and now. The distance and dissatisfaction have the same referent, and both make sense within the life lived as pilgrimage. It is the difference. It is the difference in amount between the pleasure or satisfaction which is demanded and that which is actually achieved that provides the driving factor which will permit of no halting at any position attained. But in the poet's words presses ever forward unsubdued Faust. Observed Freud in Beyond the Pleasure Principle. Janine Shajeget-Mirgel offers an extended commentary on that seminal observation, tracing the beginning of self-development, identity building, etc., to the primary condition of delayed gratification of the never to be bridged distance between the ego ideal and the realities of the present. Distance translated as delay. Passage through space is a function of time. Distances are measured by the time needed to cancel them. Here is the waiting, there is the gratification. How far it is from here to there, from the waiting to gratification, from the void to meaning, from the project to identity. 10 years, 20, as long as it takes to live one's vocation true. Time one can use to measure distances must be of the sort of the rulers are straight in one piece with equidistant markings, made of thought, made of dough and solid material, made of tough and solid material, and such was indeed the time of modern living towards projects. Like like life itself, it was directional, continuous, and unbendable. It marched on and passed by. Both life and time were made to the measure of pilgrimage. For the pilgrim, for the modern man, this meant in practical terms that he should had to select his point of arrival fairly early in life with confidence, certain that the straight line of lifetime ahead will not bend, twist or wrap, come to and halt or turn backwards. Delay of gratification, much as the momentary frustration it begot, was an energizing factor and the source of identity building zeal insofar as it was coupled with the trust in the linearity and cumulativeness of time. The foremost strategy of life as pilgrimage, of life as identity building, was saying to the future, but saving for the future made sense as strategy only insofar as one could be sure that the future will reward the savings with interest and the bonus ones accrued will not be withdrawn. That the savings will not be devaluated before the bonus distribution date or declared invalid currency. Oh. That what is seen today as capital will be seen the same way tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. Pilgrims had a stake in solidity of the world they walked, in a kind of world in which one can tell life is a continuous story, a sense-making story, such a story makes as makes each event the effect of the event before the effect of the event before the cause and the event after. Each age station on the road pointing towards fulfillment. The world of pilgrims, of identity builders, must be orderly, determined, predictable, ensured, but above all, it must be a kind of world in which footprints are engraved for good, so that the trace and the record of past travels are kept and preserved. A world in which traveling may be indeed a pilgrimage, a world hospitable to the pilgrims. The world inhospitable to pilgrims. The world is not hospitable to the pilgrims anymore. The pilgrims lost their battle by winning it. They strove to make the world solid by making it pliable, so that identity could be built and willed at will, but built systematically, floor by floor and brick by brick. They proceeded by turning the space in which identity was to be built into a desert. They found out that thought the desert thought comfortingly featureless for those who seek to make their mark, does not hold features well. The easier it is to emboss a footprint, the easier it is to efface it. A gust of wind will do, and deserts are windy places. It soon it soon transpired that the real problem is not how to build identity, but how to preserve it. Whatever you may build in the sand is unlikely to be a castle. In a desert-like world, it takes no great effort to blaze a trail. The difficulty is how to recognize it as a trail after a while. How to distinguish a forward march from going in circles, from eternal return. It becomes virtually impossible to patch the trodden stretches on sand into an itinerary, let alone to plan for a lifelong journey. The meaning of identity, points out Christopher Lash, refers both to persons and to things. Both have lost their solidity in modern society, their definiteness and continuity. The world constructed of durable objects has been replaced with disposable products designed for immediate obsolescence. In such a world, identities can be adopted and discarded like a change of costume. The horror of the new situation is that all diligent work of construction may prove to be in vain. Its allurement is the fact of not being bound by the past trails, being never irrevocably defeated, always keeping on the options open. The horror and the allurement alike make life as pilgrimage hardly feasible as a strategy and unlikely to be chosen as one, not by many anyway, and not with great chance of success. In the live game of the postmodern customers, the rulers of the game kept changing in the course of playing. The sensible strategy is therefore to keep each game short, so that a sensibility played game of life calls for the splitting of the one bit all embracing game with huge stakes into a series of brief and narrow games with small ones. Determination to live one day at a time, depicting daily life as a succession of minor emergencies, become the guiding principles of all rational conduct. To keep the game short means to beware long-term commitments, to refuse to be fixed on one way or the other, not to get tied to the place, not to wed one's lives to one vocation only, not to swear consistency and loyalty to anything and anybody, not to control the future, but to refuse to mortgage, it, to take care that the consequences of the game do not outlive the game itself, and to renounce responsibility for such as do, to forbid the past to bear on the present. In short, to cut the present off at both ends, to never to sever the present from history, to abolish time in any other form but a flat collection of or an arbitrary sequence of present moments, a continuous present, one disassembled and no more a vector. Time no longer structures the space. On the ground there is no more forward and backward. It is just the ability not to stand with that counts, not to stand not to stand still that counts. Fitness, the capacity to move swiftly where the action is, and be ready to take in experiences as they comes, takes precedence over health. That idea of the standard of normalcy, and of keeping that standard stable and unscathed, all delay, including delay of gratification, loses its meaning. There is no arrow-like time left to measure it. And so the snag is no longer how to discover, invent, construct, assemble, even buy an identity, but how to prevent it from sticking. Well constructed and durable identity turns from an asset into a liability. The hub of postmodern life strategy is not identity, but is not identity building, but avoidance of fixation. What possible purpose could the strategy of pilgrim style progress serve in this world of ours? In this world, not only have jobs for life disappeared, but trades and professions which have acquired the confusing habit of appearing from now here and vanishing without notice can hardly be lived as Weberian vocations. And to rub salt into the wound, the demand for the skills needed to practice such professions seldom lasts as long as the time needed to acquire them. Jobs are no longer projected, and most certainly no better than stability of places where they are practiced. Whenever the word rationalization is pronounced, one knows for sure that the disappearance of further jobs and places is in the pipeline. The stability and trustworthiness of the network of human relations fares little better. Our ours is the age of Anthony Giddens, pure relationship, which is entered for its own sake, for what can be derived by each person, and so it can be determined, it can be terminated more or less as will at will by either partner at any particular point of confluent love, which jars with the forever one and only qualities of the romantic love complex, so that romance can no longer be equated with with permanence of plastic sexuality, that is sexual enjoyment severed from its age-old integration with reproduction, kinship, and the generations. One can hardly hook on an identity to relationship which themselves are irreparably unhooked, and one is solemnly advised not to try, as the strong commitment, the deep attachment, let alone loyalty that tribute to to the by now obsolete idea that attachment has consequences that bind while commitment means obligations, may wool and scar them the time to detect the self from the partner arrives, as it almost certainly will. The game of life is fast and leaves no time to pause and think and draw elaborate designs. But again, adding impotence to bafflement, the rules of the game keep changing long before the game is finished. In this cosmic casino of ours, as George Steiner puts it, values to be cherished and actively pursued, rewards to be fought for, and stratagems to be deployed for to get them, are all calculated for maximal impact and instant obsolescence. For maximal impact, since in a world oversaturated by information, attention turns into this scarcity of resources and only a shocking message, and one more shocking that the last stands a chance of catching it until the text shock, an instant obsolescence, and the side of attention needs to be cleared as soon as it is filled to make room for new messages knocking at the gate.